Long ago, the world was young, and the sky stretched wide like a canvas of living breath. Above the peaks of Olympus, clouds drifted slowly, carrying whispers no mortal could hear. The gods watched from their thrones, guardians of balance, keepers of fire, sea, and wind. At the heart of it all stood Zeus, Lord of Thunder, his gaze reaching farther than the horizon. His voice could stir mountains, yet his silence carried the weight of storms unborn. Mortals honored him with prayers, believing his power endless, his wisdom eternal. But the sky itself began to change, restless and heavy with unspoken secrets. Clouds gathered not in anger, but in longing, circling as though seeking to be heard. The air grew thick, carrying a hum that was neither song nor warning, only mystery. Even the stars blinked uncertainly, hidden behind veils of silver mist. It was then that the first rumble came, deep and soft, like the breath of the earth. Winds curled around the mountains, weaving patterns that no eye could follow. The gods paused, sensing a force older than Olympus itself stirring awake. This was not thunder called by Zeus, nor rain summoned by Poseidon's seas. It was something beyond them, an eternal storm waiting to reveal its tale. The morning sky opened wide, painted with soft blues and pale gold from the sun's gentle rise. Birds sang across valleys, their wings tracing arcs of light above forests still wet with dew. Mountains stood in silence, their peaks piercing clouds that drifted like silver ships. Yet even in such calm, Zeus felt a tremor within the air that no mortal eye could notice. His throne on Olympus shimmered with power, but his gaze was fixed upon the restless horizon. The clouds shifted oddly, curling inward as though holding a secret they could not release. He leaned forward, listening to a silence that felt too heavy, too charged with unseen intent. The gods around him continued their laughter, unaware of the change unfolding above them. But Zeus, Lord of skies, could not ignore the rhythm that beat within the heavens. A single streak of wind slid past his cheek, carrying a whisper like a half-forgotten song. He closed his eyes and heard it clearer, a tone of longing woven into the fabric of the air. It was not the voice of mortals, nor the call of gods, but something older and deeper. The king of Olympus rose slowly, his presence silencing even the smallest echo in the hall. He spoke not a word, but the world seemed to bend, waiting for his thought to unfold. From the valleys below, shepherds lifted their heads, sensing the shift in the sky. Fishermen on distant seas paused, their nets swaying with tides stirred by unseen winds. Children gazed upward, pointing at patterns of clouds swirling like endless spirals. The earth itself seemed to breathe differently, as if joining in a song of awakening. Zeus walked beyond the marble columns, his steps echoing against the stone of Olympus. Above him, the heavens began to stir, folding and unfolding, like a vast living tapestry. The first rumble came, faint, hidden within the clouds, almost shy in its arrival. He knew thunder well, for it was his own to command, but this was not his creation. This sound was older, carrying weight beyond his throne, beyond the rule of gods. The air tightened, humming softly, a resonance felt more than heard by the heart. A flock of doves flew upward, scattering, their wings cutting paths through thickening mist. Zeus stretched his hand, palm open, seeking not to command but to understand. The sky responded with another murmur, deeper this time, like a voice forming words. But the language was not of men or gods, it was of storm itself, raw and eternal. He breathed in the charged air, his chest rising with the rhythm of the growing storm. There was no malice in the sound, no rage, only a plea hidden beneath layers of thunder. The king of gods felt something rare within him, curiosity, edged with quiet awe. He turned his gaze across the earth, wondering if mortals below felt the same pull. In the far fields, wheat bent gently, as though bowing to a presence unseen. On the seas, waves rolled with grace, not fury, guided by invisible hands. The storm was waking, but it did not strike. It sang, weaving patterns into the world. Zeus whispered low, his words lost to the wind. "What do you seek from me, ancient voice?" No answer came in speech, Yet the clouds thickened, forming a spiral that never ended. The eternal storm had not yet revealed its heart, but it had begun to make itself known. Zeus stood tall, framed against the trembling sky, ready to listen where others would not. The first chapter of his journey had opened, not with battle, but with a question. And that question echoed still, carried by winds across mountains, seas, and mortal dreams. The storm did not fade, nor did it rest, but lingered above the world like a dream without end. Days passed, yet the winds circled, never breaking, their voices constant and strange. Mortals looked upward with awe and fear, wondering why the sky no longer knew calm. Fishermen found the sea uneasy, its waves rising in rhythms they could not predict. Farmers watched their crops bend too often, the sun veiled by a sky that never cleared. Children whispered about the clouds, tracing shapes of endless spirals above their homes. Priests lit fires on the hills, calling for blessings, though no god answered their chants. On Olympus, the gods gathered in quiet halls, their laughter gone, their eyes fixed skyward. Zeus stood at the center, his presence commanding, though his thoughts were heavy with questions. He had faced storms of his own making, yet this one remained untouched by his will. Each rumble of thunder seemed to breathe, alive, as though speaking without words. The winds did not rage, but circled endlessly, weaving a pattern without conclusion. Athena, wise and calm, spoke first. "This is no ordinary storm, Father of Gods." Her voice carried the weight of reason, yet even she could not explain its design. Apollo, bright as the morning sun, lifted his gaze and saw no omen in its light. The heavens are veiled, their music hidden. Even the stars are silent in this storm. Hera, watchful queen, frowned, her heart wary of forces unbound and unexplained. Perhaps it is a sign, not of doom, but of remembrance, long forgotten. Zeus listened, but the answers did not reach the depth of his unease. The eternal storm seemed to know them, to watch, as if it held its own judgment. Lightning flashed once across the horizon, not fierce, but graceful, like a handwriting. The clouds shifted, their spirals folding inward, creating a path unseen by mortal eyes. The gods watched in silence, for they had never seen a storm refuse to pass. It was not destruction, nor gift, but a presence that demanded to be felt. Zeus stepped forward to the edge of Olympus, the winds brushing his face like a greeting. He raised his hand to the sky, not with command, but with patience, seeking reply. The storm answered with a deep rolling thunder, soft yet endless in its echo. It carried no anger, only an unyielding reminder of something long past. Poseidon stirred in the council, the seas within him restless, echoing the storm's rhythm. The waters rise as though called, yet it is not my voice they answer. Demeter bowed her head, her fields trembling beneath the shadow of the swirling sky. The earth listens too, but I sense no harm, only a longing. The gods fell silent, their eyes fixed upon Zeus, awaiting his decree. But Zeus did not speak, for even he felt the weight of something beyond words. The eternal storm turned slowly, its spiral widening, stretching across lands and seas. Mortals called it a curse, yet it brought no ruin, only ceaseless wonder. Travelers told tales of the humming air, of clouds glowing faintly at night. Poets wove verses about a storm that lived, eternal and serene in its mystery. And still, atop Olympus, Zeus stood watching, his heart steady yet restless. The storm did not ask for battle, nor for worship, only for recognition. It waited, timeless, as if testing whether the gods would remember the forgotten bond. In the hush between thunder, Zeus felt it clearly. This was not a foe. It was a voice of the world itself, unbroken, eternal, calling for harmony once more. High upon Olympus, the council was called, a rare gathering beneath marble arches of the gods' great hall. The eternal storm still circled, its voice reaching even into the sacred chambers of the divine. Zeus sat at the center, his throne tall and gleaming, yet his eyes remained fixed upon the horizon. The gods arrived in silence, their usual brightness dimmed, their laughter absent beneath the humming air. Hera entered first, her steps deliberate, her gaze sharp as she studied her husband's solemn face. Athena followed, wisdom in her stride, carrying with her scrolls of thought and unspoken theories. Apollo came with golden light, his lyre quiet at his side. His music lost in the storm's song, Poseidon rose from the seas, salt and wave trailing behind, his trident shining like a restless tide. Demeter entered softly, green vines at her feet, her heart heavy for the fields beneath the storm. Hermes flitted in last, wings whispering, his smile absent as he looked skyward with unease. The council seated itself, each throne alive with energy, yet subdued beneath the storm's weight. Zeus spoke, his voice steady, thunder beneath words. The storm lingers, and none here command its path. Hera leaned forward, her tone firm. Perhaps it is no storm, but a reminder from the earth. Athena nodded, her gray eyes deep. It holds order within chaos, a spiral without end or break. Apollo raised his hand, his golden hair glinting. Yet no prophecy has spoken of this eternal sky. Poseidon's voice rolled like waves. The seas obey me, yet they stir to the storm's rhythm, not mine. Demeter sighed, her tone gentle. The earth bows, but not in fear. It listens as though to an old friend. Hermes tilted his head, wings still. Even the winds that carry me answer to another master now. The hall grew quiet, filled with the hum of unseen power threading through its very stone. Zeus leaned back, his hand resting upon his scepter, his eyes narrowing with thought. This storm does not strike, nor does it fade. It sings, and its voice reaches all creation. The gods exchanged looks, their pride tempered by the truth of what they had all witnessed. Hera pressed further. If it seeks remembrance, then what promise have we forgotten to keep? Athena unrolled a scroll, lines glowing faintly with old agreements, etched in divine memory. There was once a pact, she said, made between sky, sea, and land to preserve balance. Apollo whispered almost to himself. A harmony, sworn before time, counted the years of mortals. Poseidon's eyes darkened. If such a pact was broken, the seas would bear scars of its undoing. Demeter bowed her head, and the earth would ache beneath forgotten oaths, longing for renewal. Hermes frowned, restless. Perhaps this storm is not punishment, but a messenger of the pact. Zeus lifted his hand, silencing them all, his voice low yet carrying across the vast chamber. The storm speaks without words. It waits for us to listen, to remember, and to answer. The gods fell still, each feeling the weight of the silence that followed his decree. Outside, thunder rolled gently, as though acknowledging the truth spoken within the hall. The eternal storm did not fade, but its rhythm seemed to soften, listening to Olympus itself. Zeus rose, his form towering lightning faint around him. Then we must seek its heart together. No dissent came, for even pride bowed before the storm's unending voice. The Council of Olympus had begun, not in discord, but in the shadow of a shared mystery. And above, the eternal storm turned slowly, patient, waiting for the gods to remember their promise. The storm lingered, circling endlessly, its voice woven into every gust, every rumble of distant thunder. Mortals called it strange music, a rhythm that lulled them to silence beneath the shifting heavens. The gods listened too, though they would not say aloud that the storm itself was speaking. Zeus, master of skies, felt the weight of its presence more deeply than any other. One night, as Olympus lay quiet, he walked alone upon the marble terraces of the palace. The air trembled softly, not with threat, but with something that felt like memory stirring awake. He paused, his eyes searching the endless spirals above, and in them he saw intent. A thunderclap rolled, not fierce, but measured, like a sentence spoken in a hidden tongue. The clouds pulsed faintly, shifting like breath, and Zeus knew he was being addressed. He stood still, his heart steady, his mind open to the message carried in the sky. The storm did not form words, yet meaning pressed against him, shaping thought without sound. It was as though the heavens themselves had found voice, ancient and beyond mortal speech. Zeus heard a longing, A call for balance, a plea carried through ages of silence. He felt the storm ask not for fear, but for remembrance of harmony once promised. The thunder came again, low and steady. Each roll a phrase, each echo a question. Do you still honor the pact? Do you remember the vows sworn to the world? Zeus closed his eyes, and in the hum of the air he felt the truth. This was no storm born of chaos, but of memory older than Olympus itself. The eternal storm was alive, not as a god, but as the voice of creation's balance. It sought no war, no worship, only recognition, only the renewal of forgotten harmony. Zeus breathed deeply, lightning stirring faintly within his veins, though he did not command it. For the first time, he stood not as master of thunder, but as a listener to it. The storm whispered again, in spirals of wind that touched both sky and earth below. Mortals stirred in their sleep, dreaming of rain that sang, of clouds that carried voices. Shepherds in the valleys woke, their flocks restless, as though hearing unseen melodies. On the seas, sailors lifted their heads, the air humming softly around their ships. Zeus opened his eyes, his voice calm yet firm, speaking not to the gods, but to the sky. I hear you. I remember. Speak, and I will answer, for the pact is not forgotten. The clouds swirled tighter, their spiral glowing faintly as lightning danced without fury. Another rumble followed, softer, almost tender, carrying relief within its echo. The eternal storm did not rage, but sighed, as though grateful to be understood. The gods within Olympus felt the shift. Their hearts stirred, though they had not heard the words. Athena paused in her chamber, her thoughts alive with new clarity, wisdom sparked by unseen hands. Apollo lifted his lyre, strumming once, and the sound echoed gently with the storm's hum. Hera gazed skyward, her stern eyes softened by a presence that asked only to be remembered. Poseidon, restless in his seas, stilled as the waters calmed, joining the rhythm of the storm. Zeus raised his hand, palm open, not in command, but in solemn vow renewed. The storm answered with rain, soft and steady, falling upon the earth like blessing. It did not end, for it was eternal, but its voice grew gentle, no longer burdened. The eternal storm had spoken, and the first answer had been given in listening. Zeus stood upon Olympus, knowing this was only the beginning of the journey. The storm's voice would guide him still, for its story was far from complete. Zeus did not sleep that night, for the storm's voice lingered, echoing softly through his thoughts. The clouds had spoken without words, and he knew their call was one he could not ignore. At dawn, the sky glowed pale, yet the eternal spirals remained, circling with tireless patience. The gods of Olympus watched as Zeus stepped from his throne and took his staff in hand. He spoke with calm strength. I must go beyond Olympus. The storm has a heart, and I must find it. Hera's eyes were sharp with worry, yet she did not stop him, for she knew his will was firm. Athena bowed her head, wisdom shining in her eyes. Seek with thought as much as with thunder. Apollo strummed his lyre once, his golden voice soft. The world itself may guide your path. Poseidon gripped his trident, waves whispering at his feet. The seas will bear you if you must cross. Demeter whispered gently. May the earth walk with you, for its roots remember promises long past. Zeus listened, and though their words were many, his heart was quiet, resolved to journey alone. He descended from Olympus, his steps echoing across marble, into the valleys of mortal lands. The air thickened as he walked, the winds curling about him like threads of unseen hands. Mortals looked on in awe, their voices hushed as they watched the king of gods stride past. He carried no armies, no thunderbolts raised, only his presence and the storm that followed. Across mountains he traveled, their peaks shrouded in mist, their silence broken by distant rumbling. The eternal storm lingered above him, shifting gently as though guiding his every step. Zeus reached the edge of great forests, their trees swaying as if bowing in recognition. Birds flew overhead, their songs woven with the storm's hum, a harmony of earth and sky. He paused at rivers wide and strong, the waters shimmering beneath restless, spiraling clouds. Each step forward carried him deeper into lands where gods seldom walked among mortals. Villagers gathered at roadsides, kneeling quietly, their eyes reflecting both fear and reverence. Children whispered stories of a sky that sang, and of Zeus, who walked with storms. He raised no voice to them, only a nod, his journey too heavy for words. As night fell, he climbed a high cliff where the horizon stretched farther than sight. The storm swirled above, its spirals glowing faintly with silver light beneath the moon. Zeus lifted his hand, palm open, letting the wind curl gently against his skin. He closed his eyes, listening again, and the storm breathed its meaning into his soul. It was not leading him to battle, nor to conquest, but to remembrance and truth. The heart of the storm lay ahead, beyond the seas, beyond the reaches of Olympus. Zeus felt it calling him onward, across vast horizons where few dared to go. He gazed at the stars, hidden yet flickering faintly through veils of swirling cloud. For the first time, he wondered if even he, king of gods, could endure such a path. Yet the call was steady, not demanding, only patient, as though waiting for him to answer. The storm whispered through the trees, its voice softer now, almost like a companion's breath. Zeus stood tall upon the cliff, the world below silent, the heavens alive above. He spoke not to gods, nor to mortals, but to the storm itself. "I will follow." The thunder rolled in reply, gentle yet endless, carrying agreement across mountains and seas. And so Zeus began his journey beyond the heavens, seeking the hidden heart of the eternal storm. Zeus traveled far beyond the valleys, his path stretching into lands untouched by divine presence. The eternal storm circled faithfully, never fading, its spirals guiding him like a lantern in the sky. Days became nights, and nights flowed into dawns. Yet the storm remained constant above him. Mountains gave way to plains, wide and endless, where winds raced freely across golden grasses. Zeus walked steadily, his staff tapping the earth, the sound echoing like a quiet drumbeat. Mortals along the plains watched from a distance, sensing the weight of his sacred journey. They felt no fear, only reverence, as though his steps carried blessings to the land itself. The rivers widened, gleaming under the storm's glow, whispering stories of forgotten ages. Zeus often paused at their banks, listening to the waters, as if they too carried voices, and in their murmurs, he felt reminders of the old harmony between sky and earth. One evening, he entered a desert where the sand shifted like waves beneath the storm. The air was dry, yet the spirals above breathed cool wind, shielding him from the heat. For 3 days he crossed the dunes, guided by lightning that flashed softly without thunder. On the 4th night, he reached an oasis where palm trees bowed beneath the storm's song. There he rested, gazing upward, his heart patient, waiting for the storm to speak again. It came in whispers, not of command, but of invitation. Beyond the sea lies the heart. Zeus rose, his gaze firm, knowing his journey was far from its destined end. He traveled onward, reaching the edge of a great coast where the horizon met eternity. The sea stretched vast and silver, waves rising in rhythm with the storm above. Sailors nearby bowed as he passed, their ships trembling gently under the weight of the skies. Zeus spoke softly to the waters. "Will you carry me to where the storm is born?" The waves lifted high, calm yet powerful, answering in their movement rather than in words. He stepped onto a ship waiting at the shore, its sails filled by the storm's breath. The crew, silent and awed, dared not question the presence of the god among them. Their voyage began, guided by winds that curved with intent, leading into uncharted seas. Nights at sea were alive with thunderless lightning, spirals glowing like pathways above. The sailors whispered prayers, but Zeus simply listened, knowing the storm was his only guide. Days turned into weeks, yet the sea never grew restless, its waves harmonizing with the sky. One night, as stars flickered faintly through clouded veils, the storm spoke once more. Its voice entered his heart, not through sound, but through the steady rhythm of waves. "You have remembered the pact. You walk not as ruler, but as keeper of balance." Zeus bowed his head, humbled, for in the vastness he felt small, yet deeply connected. The sea carried the ship onward, toward a horizon that glowed faintly with unknown light. Sailors dreamed strange dreams, of skies alive with voices, of lands where storms never ended. Zeus stood at the bow, his eyes fixed forward, his spirit steady as the tide. The storm hummed above, not pressing, only waiting, patient as time itself. He knew the heart was near, across waters where even gods seldom dared to wander. And still he walked, still he sailed, bound by the vow whispered from the clouds. The eternal storm had chosen him to remember, to listen, to answer. And Zeus, king of gods, accepted the journey, his path unbroken beneath the endless spirals. The voyage stretched on, endless waters surrounding the ship, yet the storm above never wavered. Zeus stood silent at the bow, eyes locked on the horizon, glowing faintly with shifting light. The sailors whispered that the sea was different here, deeper, older, and filled with strange calm. At night, the waters shimmered, glowing softly as if stars had fallen beneath the surface. The storm mirrored their glow, spirals weaving patterns that pulsed in rhythm with the sea below. Zeus felt the connection, as though sky and ocean were no longer separate, but one breath. Days passed without hunger or thirst, for the storm seemed to sustain all who sailed beneath it. The crew grew silent, their hearts light, their dreams vivid with voices not their own. They dreamt of mountains rising from the deep, of skies that sang without end. Zeus knew these were not ordinary dreams, but gifts from the storm guiding their spirits. On the seventh night, the ship entered waters calm as glass, endless and perfectly still. The storm above shifted, its spiral slowing, as though it had reached the center of all things. Lightning flickered softly, tracing delicate lines that formed a great circle above the ship. Zeus looked upward and whispered, "This is the place, the heart you wished me to find." The sea below answered with a deep hum, vibrating through the ship and into his bones. The sailors fell to their knees, overwhelmed, though they did not understand what they felt. Zeus raised his staff, but not in command, only as a symbol of recognition and respect. The storm responded, lowering its spirals until clouds brushed the sea with glowing edges. From the heart of the storm, a voice emerged, vast yet gentle, echoing across eternity. "You have come, keeper of skies? Do you remember the promise made at the dawn of time?" Zeus felt the words not in his ears, but within his spirit, resonating with ancient memory. He closed his eyes, and visions filled him of the world newborn, fragile, bathed in balance. The storm had been there then, woven into creation, ensuring harmony between earth, sea, and sky. Gods and storm together once vowed to guard the world, to preserve its sacred balance. But time had dimmed the memory, gods rising in pride, mortals forgetting the silent covenant. Zeus opened his eyes, his voice steady. "I remember now. The vow was never meant to fade." The storm answered with thunder soft as a heartbeat, a sound of relief, of recognition. The sailors trembled, though they felt no fear, only awe, as if witnessing creation anew. Zeus stretched his hand upward, lightning dancing faintly across his palm without command. "I will renew the pact," he said, "not as ruler, but as guardian of balance." The storm brightened, its spirals glowing like rivers of light flowing endlessly across the heavens. The sea shimmered brighter too, waves rising gently as though bowing to the renewal of harmony. The sailors wept silently, though they did not know why, touched by the weight of eternity. Zeus felt lighter, as if centuries of forgotten duty had been lifted from his shoulders. The voice of the storm softened, carrying gratitude. "Then the balance may live again, through you." And with those words, the spirals above began to expand, stretching far beyond sight. The eternal storm grew vast, weaving itself into every horizon, binding sea and sky anew. Zeus stood tall, his heart steady, knowing his journey was not ended but transformed. He had reached the heart, but the vow would demand more than memory. It required living truth. The ship drifted gently onward, carried by calm waters and endless skies alive with promise. And Zeus, keeper of thunder, carried the storm within him, bound forever to its eternal song. The ship drifted onward, carried by winds that seemed older than the sea itself. The eternal storm no longer raged, but hovered above with calm, steady spirals of light. Zeus stood tall at the bow, watching horizons expand as though the world had grown wider. The sailors moved in silence, their hearts lighter, as if a burden they never knew was gone. Each night, the sky glowed with soft lightning, tracing endless patterns above their quiet vessel. Zeus felt the storm within him, not a weapon, but a companion guiding his every thought. At dawn, they reached an island, small, yet shining, cradled in the heart of the ocean. The waves bent gently around its shores, as though protecting it from the rest of the sea. Zeus stepped ashore, the sand cool beneath his feet, though the sun burned bright above. The sailors remained aboard, sensing the island was meant for gods, not mortal steps. The island was quiet, filled with trees that swayed though no wind stirred the air. Birdsong echoed softly, weaving with the hum of the storm above the treetops. Zeus followed a path that seemed to form beneath his feet, winding deeper into the island. At its center stood a great stone, ancient and carved with symbols older than Olympus. The markings pulsed faintly, glowing whenever thunder rumbled softly from the heavens. Zeus laid his hand upon the stone, and the storm's voice filled the air once more. Here lies the memory of the pact, bound in earth so it may never be lost. Visions flowed through him, gods standing beside storms, mortals thriving in harmony below. The balance was never meant to be forgotten, yet pride had let it slip into shadow. Zeus bowed his head, not in defeat but in recognition of his role as keeper. "I will guard this vow," he whispered, "and teach gods and mortals to honor it again." The stone glowed brighter, light spilling across the island like dawn breaking for the first time. The storm above echoed softly, no longer pressing, only harmonizing with the vow renewed. Trees shimmered as leaves caught the glow, and the air itself sang with quiet promise. Zeus felt the weight of eternity settle not as burden but as steady responsibility. He knew the pact was not his alone, but he must be its voice once more. The island seemed to breathe with him, every tree and stone aligned to the balance. Zeus lingered until night fell, the stars breaking through the spirals of cloud above. The storm dimmed but did not vanish, resting as though content with the promise kept. When Zeus returned to the shore, the sailors gazed at him with reverence deeper than words. They saw his eyes glowing faintly, not with lightning's fury, but with the storm's calm strength. The ship carried him away, yet the island remained, eternal and untouched, a sacred memory. As they sailed on, mortals across distant lands stirred in dreams of balance and peace. Shepherds heard whispers in the wind. Farmers felt the soil breathe richer beneath their feet. On Olympus, the gods felt the shift, though none had stood upon the island itself. Athena's thoughts sharpened. Apollo's song grew clearer. Hera's watch softened. Poseidon's tides grew gentler. The world itself seemed to sigh, as though recognizing the vow had been renewed. Zeus stood tall on the ship, the storm spiral steady above, endless yet no longer restless. He knew the journey was not finished, for the vow must live beyond him in all. The eternal storm had chosen him as keeper, but balance would need every voice to endure. The horizon stretched on, and Zeus walked forward, ready to carry the vow into eternity. The voyage pressed onward, yet the seas were calmer now, as though touched by unseen harmony. The eternal storm trailed above them, no longer fierce, but a crown of light guiding their path. Zeus stood steady, listening to the hum of the world echoing faintly within his chest. The sailors felt it too, though they could not name it a sense of peace unlike any before. One night, as stars burned brighter, a soft glow appeared on the horizon, distant yet inviting. The crew whispered of a city, a place of mortals who sang to the sea in gratitude. Zeus nodded, for he knew the vow of balance must reach beyond gods and into mortal hearts. By dawn, they reached the harbor of a coastal city, vibrant with markets and flowing music. The people greeted them warmly, though they bowed low upon seeing Zeus's radiant presence. Children laughed as lightning danced harmlessly above, tracing gentle spirals across the clear sky. Zeus walked among them, his steps light, his eyes soft with the calm of the storm. The elders approached, offering bread, fruit, and wine, symbols of gratitude for the god's arrival. "Why do you honor me so?" Zeus asked, his tone not commanding but curious and kind. An elder replied, "Because the winds have changed, the earth feels alive, and the sea is kind." Zeus knew then the vow was already weaving itself through mortal lives, unseen yet powerful. He told them stories of the eternal storm, of its ancient bond with earth and sky. The crowd listened, silent and wide-eyed, as if hearing their own forgotten memory restored. "Balance," Zeus said, "is not a gift from gods alone, but a song all must sing together." The people repeated his words, their voices uniting as if carried on the breath of the storm. That night, fires were lit across the city, not for worship but for celebration of harmony. Musicians played, dancers moved, and the air glowed faintly as the storm mirrored their joy above. Zeus stood apart, smiling, knowing the vow was alive, not in stone, but in living hearts. The sailors joined in, their burdens eased, their laughter ringing free across the quiet waves. At midnight, Zeus walked to the shore, the eternal storm reflecting upon the calm waters. A voice rose once more, gentle yet vast. "The pact breathes again, through god and mortal alike." Zeus bowed his head, whispering to the storm, "It will not fade again, not while I remain." The storm pulsed softly, thunder rolling like a lullaby, carrying its vow into every horizon. When morning came, the city awoke brighter, its streets alive with the promise of balance. Farmers spoke of richer soil, sailors of calmer tides, children of dreams filled with golden light. The elders thanked Zeus again, but he raised his hand gently, asking only for one thing. "Guard the balance," he said, "not with fear, but with kindness that binds earth, sea, and sky." The people agreed, not as subjects, but as partners in a shared, eternal covenant. Zeus returned to his ship, the crew ready, their eyes lifted to the storm above. As they set sail once more, the horizon glowed, not with danger, but with endless possibility. The eternal storm followed, vast and calm, no longer a trial, but a companion in harmony. And Zeus, heart steady, knew the vow would endure, for it now belonged to gods and mortals alike. The journey neared its end, though the horizon stretched wider than ever before. The eternal storm followed softly, its spirals glowing like a crown of light above the world. Zeus stood tall, his heart calm, carrying the vow renewed within every breath he drew. The sailors sensed it too, the balance woven into their spirits, guiding them with quiet certainty. One dawn, the sea opened into vast calm, waters endless and still as a mirror of sky. The storm above mirrored it perfectly, as though heaven and ocean had become one. In that silence, Zeus heard the voices of gods carried gently upon the morning wind. They called not in anger, but with wonder, sensing the shift he had brought to the world. Athena spoke first, her voice clear. "Wisdom sees the vow reborn. We will walk beside it." Apollo's song followed. "Let harmony guide light and music, for all are echoes of the same truth." Poseidon's tide whispered, "The sea remembers, and it bends, not in wrath, but in accord." Hera's voice softened, carrying care. "Let guardianship be gentle, for love sustains balance too." One by one, the gods acknowledged the vow, not as rulers, but as stewards of creation. Zeus listened, his heart swelling, knowing pride had softened into shared responsibility. The eternal storm pulsed above them, vast and bright, carrying the gods' voices across eternity. The sailors wept quietly, not from fear, but from awe at hearing the chorus of Olympus. Zeus lifted his hand, lightning glowing faintly, soft as a candle's flame in gentle night. "This vow belongs to all," he said. "It will endure because it is woven into every breath." The storm thundered softly, like the heartbeat of the world, carrying agreement across the seas. As they sailed onward, mortals across lands felt the shift, though they could not name it. Farmers sowed seed with lighter steps. Healers found hands steadier. Poets spoke with deeper truth. Children dreamed of skies without end, where gods walked not above, but alongside them. The vow breathed within every horizon, binding the world not with chains, but with song. Zeus knew then his role was not to command, but to remind, to guide, to protect. The eternal storm was no longer a trial he endured, but a companion he cherished. It whispered to him gently, carrying gratitude. "Keeper of skies, you have remembered the truth." He answered softly, "I did not restore it alone. Gods and mortals together breathe its life." The spirals widened, stretching far beyond sight, weaving sky, earth, and sea into harmony. The sailors watched, their spirits lifted, as if witnessing creation renewed before their eyes. At last, Zeus turned from the horizon to his crew, his voice steady, his eyes calm. "Our voyage is not finished," he said, "for balance must be tended wherever it falters." They nodded, not in fear, but in trust, ready to sail with him beyond every horizon. The eternal storm followed, vast and serene, no longer restless but eternal, alive with promise. And so the story did not end, for balance is not an ending, but a living vow. Zeus carried it forward, God and guardian, bound to the storm and to the world he served. The seas stretched on, endless and shining, while the storm sang softly, eternal and unbroken. Thus the vow lived, woven in sky and sea, in gods and mortals, in every breath of life. And the eternal storm, once feared, was now the heart of harmony, guiding all into eternity.